Lou from Tropic Marin is here, and before you go, Lou, I wanted to ask you probably the biggest question that always rolls around my mind, especially as somebody who's constantly fussing with new gear and new products and learning about them and explaining them to people. The one question I always ask myself is what's next? And for a long time, the biggest what's next thing for chemistry and for dosing was always a one-part additive.
Yeah.
But we have all for Reef now. It lives up to the hype. So now I've been thinking to myself, what's next? And we just talked about Phosphide, which is a very cool product that I didn't know existed. And it's also new that basically instead of trying to dose phosphates directly to your tank, you're able to dose phosphates in a particulate form that your corals can actually absorb a lot more easily.
Well, you've actually been listening.
I have been this entire time. I am like a sponge. This stuff, if you don't know yet, because a lot of people just hear me talk about gear, I am a nerd when it comes to this stuff. I really love learning about it.
I can vouch for that.
Right? So yeah, we've been having lots of conversations. So I want to know what is the next big thing in reef keeping in terms of products for chemistry, or like what are we expecting to see? I know Tropic Marin is going to be responsible for that.
You should have come to Interzoo.
I should have come to Interzoo.
Because we showed two new things at Interzoo.
Two new things.
Two new things.
Okay, you got me.
So the first one is ScioControl.
Okay.
ScioControl is a tool in dealing with cyanobacteria.
Okay.
And the big reason that's a super cool thing is that who hasn't had trouble with cyanobacteria from time to time?
Everybody gets cyanobacteria.
And most of the products that are available on the market are products that try to address the cyanobacteria in a very different way than ScioControl does. So let me explain what ScioControl does. ScioControl is not a biocide of any kind.
So it's not like an antibiotic?
No.
Okay.
It's a completely natural form of bacteria that takes the place of the cyanobacteria.
Outcompetes it.
Well, it outcompetes it, but it's a squatter. So think of it this way. You go in and you suck out as much of the cyanobacteria as you can. Take the purple slime off of the surface of the substrate, try to suck it off the rocks, right? Get as much of it physically out of there as you can.
Which is what we always do anyway.
Right. The ScioControl is not going to kill it.
Right.
And it's not going to get rid of it. What it's going to do is, after you physically remove as much as you can, you add the ScioControl, and these squatters will go in. It's a completely natural, safe form of bacteria that populates the same places that the cyanobacteria was and prevents it from regrowing. Now, because it's a completely natural product, sometimes it works, and sometimes you need a second, a third, or a fourth edition of it to get it to go, because you're not going in there and selectively killing the cyanobacteria.
Right.
You're taking its area that it likes to live, and you're putting a population in there that's going to prevent it from regrowing. So you go in, you suck it out, add the ScioControl. You do that 2 or 3 times, and what you'll notice is now the cyanobacteria doesn't have a place to repopulate. And so it helps control that cyanobacteria outbreak.
Without having to put any kind of antibiotic in the tank.
Yes.
Because that's the one thing about cyanobacteria. I've almost never used any cyanobacteria or slime removing agents in my tanks because I'm so nervous with anything that kills something else.
Well, and how does that focus on that invertebrate and not other invertebrates?
That's the thing. I don't know what else is happening. I don't know like my microbiome well enough. You know, there are forms of testing now that are definitely going to aquabiomics that can monitor the microbiome, and if you send those tests in often enough, you might be able to see if there's a kind of correlation between. But if I could just not use that and not risk my anxiety going up and using something that, you know what's funny? When you were explaining it, I just pictured like kids at a birthday party and they turn the music on for musical chairs, and then all the kids get up and start dancing around, except for those few kids who are like, nah, I'm gonna sit now anyway. And then they just take the chairs, and then everybody else is like, what happened? That's basically what's going to happen.
That's basically what SIO control does.
That's really cool.
So that's a really exciting one, because I don't know of anybody that hasn't fought with cyanobacteria at some point.
Literally fighting with cyanobacteria.
And the ability to go in there, take it out, and put something in its place that's going to prevent it from regrowing, or at least hinder its regrowth, is a huge thing for me. So I'm super excited about bringing that in.
That is a really cool one. What else you got for me?
The other one I have for you is a real big one.
Oh my. All right.
Tropic Marin is about to change the landscape of how people deal with ICP testing.
Okay, you got my attention.
I figured I would.
Yes.
So there's two types of ICP tests.
Okay.
You've got the OES and the MS.
Yes.
All right. MS is pretty good at testing the larger concentration things that it's looking for.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
And the OES is better at checking the lower concentrations, the trace elements. But there are issues with it. It's not a perfect system.
I've heard.
And the reason it's not a perfect system, one of the reasons it's not a perfect system, is that some of those trace elements in their optimum range exist in concentrations that are lower than what the OES can actually test.
That would be a problem.
And so you get back a test that says you have 0 of that thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's not actually 0, but it shows a 0 because we're under the threshold.
Okay.
Okay? And that's the case actually with quite a number of the trace elements that we're looking at. All right. Well, what our folks back in the lab in Germany have realized is that the trace elements largely exist in groups, where each group has a specific function. One group might be involved in the hardening of the skeleton, and another group might be involved in the accumulation of the nutrition that the coral polyp is going to get, and another group might be involved in something else. So these are groups of trace elements that all work together. And the interesting thing about them is that these groups all go down or up in the same proportion.
So they are like linked together.
They're linked together. And if one is being used, we know that the others are in that group are being used in the same proportion.
Right.
All right. There is always at least one member of the group that is above the threshold of testing of the ICP-OES. So Tropic Marin has developed what we call the block analysis system.
Okay.
These groups we're calling blocks. And we know that certain members of each group we can test accurately. So the end result of all of this is that we now know that if trace element X is 10% depleted, that A, B, C, and D trace elements are also 10% depleted.
Because they're in the same group.
They're in that same block.
Right.
Okay? And we know we can test for element X pretty accurately. What this does is two things for us. One is that it simplifies the test results. Because one of the big problems with ICP testing is people get their ICP test back, they don't know what to do with it.
Oh yeah,
it's like how do you adjust for these minute little things?
It's a laundry list of elements that half of which we don't discuss on a regular basis anyway, half of which there's no other test kit for.
Yeah.
There might not be a way to dose, but it's on the test. There's a little bar to show you if it's too high or too low.
Yeah, it's red or it's green or it's yellow.
You're screwed or you're not. And it served for me anyway, just as a way to make me like worry about something that I can't change right now anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what the block analysis system does is to simplify the test results. We don't need to give you all of the slightly inaccurate other trace elements. All we need to do is to let you know that element X that we can measure very accurately is 10% depleted, so those others are also going to be 10% depleted. So we've simplified the results.
Perfect.
We've also simplified your reaction to the results.
I was going to ask.
So now we have block analysis solutions, where those solutions are made up of element X and all of those subcomponents that aren't as accurately measured. And all you have to worry about is element X is 10% depleted. I need to add X amount of element X in order to replenish that block. So it simplifies the test results. It simplifies how you have to react to the test results, and it increases the accuracy because we're looking at that indicator element rather than these other ones that are below the threshold.
It sounds, to me anyway, like a solution to the biggest problem with ICP testing, which is ICP testing has been confusing, it has been questionably accurate, and it has been difficult to take any kind of action on.
Yeah, it actually addresses all three of those things.
Look, I might do ICP testing because I get ICP test kits and I want to know what the results are, and I'll be honest, it has done very little to make me feel like I am doing anything better for my tank at times.
Well, here's the thing.
I feel like this is definitely moving in a direction where, as somebody who is, again, I'm the laziest reefer on the planet, somebody who wants to know that I'm doing the best that I possibly can within my control, this gives me a solution to do that kind of testing, to get a result that I'm actually going to be able to understand beyond just being like, that red line is not making me feel very confident, and then have a solution to actually move forward with.
Yeah, when Tropic Marin starts making this available in the US, and I want to be clear about this, it's probably going to be close to a year until this is available here in the US.
Break my heart, why don't you?
Well, you asked for what's coming. I got to tell you what's coming.
I know. I'd rather know now so I can anticipate.
The reason, by the way, for that is that we want to make sure that the logistics are reasonable for getting results back in a reasonable amount of time. For getting samples over to Europe. We want to make sure that we've got good logistics in place so that we're giving people accurate results. That's why it's going to take time. This is going to release in Europe now. And it's going to take us a while to work it out that we can do it here in the US. But I'm super excited about this. So we will be doing this in the US.
Awesome.
I just need to figure out exactly how that's going to work. But this does simplify the results while making them technically more accurate, because we're not going to be looking at ones that we know are inaccurate because of the testing modality, and simplify how you have to deal with this, because now you're just going to add X amount of block solution B or whatever block solution you need, and that's going to take care of that entire block.
That's so cool. How many, if you can answer, how many blocks are there?
I think there's 5.
5 blocks.
Yeah, I have to. I don't know exactly, because I was just introduced to this when I went over to Interzoo and talked to them about it. I think there's 5. There might be more. And in Europe, we have also all of the individual components. So if somebody wants to be a mad scientist and tweak everything, that's going to be available too. But that's not the part that excites me, because there are companies already doing that. The part that excites me is this block system, this block analysis system, because that doesn't exist. And when we do offer this test, you can get either result. You can get the full ICP analysis if you want to be mad scientist and put little bottles of everything in your tank, or you can get the block analysis system if you're just going to deal with the block. And in my opinion, the block analysis system actually gives you a more accurate result than the individual ones, because there are inaccuracies that we're bypassing by using the block analysis system.
Yeah, if it's already been proven that, a 10% decrease in, element A is obviously and matter of factly going to bring 10% down for these other trace elements that are indefinitely linked to it, like they are together, then that is a great solution instead of being like, well, this one says it's actually 3% and this one says 8% and this one says 7%. But oh, by the way, the margin of error is 5% or 6%.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if the 10% of element A, which is the indicator element, always means that there's 10% of all of the elements in that block. There may be other percentages that get used. I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that the percentages of all of those elements in the block match what are in the block solution. So
it might not be a linear scale for each one,
exactly.
But they move together one way or the other.
One way or the other. It's always the same proportion, and that proportion is what's in the block solution. So all you have to worry about is the indicator element. If the indicator element is 10% down, and that tells you need to add 10 mLs of that block solution, you're adding the proper proportion of all of those that are in that block. And we tell you what are all of the ones in that block. It says right on the bottle what all those block elements are.
And given that this sounds like it's going to be mostly trace element centric, this isn't something you're going to need dosing pumps for. This is going to be something you're periodically adjusting.
Yeah, you're going to get an ICP report back. It's going to tell you need this block solution and that block solution, and how much of each, and you're going to add those block solutions. This is not something you put on a dosing pump.
So this doesn't have to overly complicate my Reef love affair.
That is true, with one little caveat.
I knew there was going to be a caveat, Lou.
Well, let's say you're doing. This actually is a really interesting little nuance of this that we took into consideration. Let's say you're doing an ICP test every 2 months, and you're finding that every 2 months, your iron block or whatever is X amount low. You can actually add a certain amount of that iron block to your Reef, so that you compensate, because you're always going down that amount. You can turn that block solution into a maintenance solution and maintain that, so that then you don't get that low result each time.
This is exactly what I need in my life. Like, this is exactly what I need. So, because what this is essentially doing is, instead of me having, a bunch of different trace element solutions that every once in a while I'm trying to play catch up with, I am able to take the simplest thing that I use, that I already love and enjoy, and through this block ICP analysis, I can just be like, okay, this is always where this element is lying. This is the depletion that I'm getting, instead of continuing down this road where I'm constantly just making it up every couple of months. If I want to try to smooth that out a little bit and not end up with a dip that I'm constantly, I can just then take that block solution, add it to the Reef solution that I'm already dosing, and then smooth that out. And then my adjustments will be even less.
And it'll all be on a calculator. There'll be a calculator on the website that tells you exactly how to do that.
I'm so glad. I was going to ask if there's like what the dosing instructions are. My other question is, these block solutions, do you buy them individually? Do they come together?
No, you buy them individually, because you don't always need them all.
Right.
So you buy whichever one you need.
All right.
Now, I want to make a point about ICP testing. Because so many people call me and they say, my tank doesn't look good, and I did an ICP test, and this is what I got. And they send me the ICP test. And then I say, okay, what did the ICP test look like when your tank was looking good?
They don't know.
And they don't know because they didn't do it back then.
Yeah.
ICP is definitely a useful tool, 100%. 100%. However, any single snapshot of time tells me very little.
Yeah.
So if the tank is not doing well and you send me the ICP report, unless there's something really glaring in there that jumps out and is, obviously the cause of, which is usually not the case, it's more, what does it look like now in relation to what was it when your tank was doing well? So I'm a big fan of, every once in a while, when your tank is looking good, maybe every 6 months, run an ICP test. Just so you have a running log of a year or two of what did those ICP tests look? I'm only talking about 3 or 4 ICP tests in a couple of years, but you don't have to do this every month, but every 5-6 months, run an ICP test so you can see what your tank is doing when it's doing well.
You can see what good looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Then when you have a problem, it's very easy to identify if it's going to show up on an ICP test, and it's not always going to, but if it's going to delineate in an ICP test, then you'll be able to see it very easily. You won't even need to call me. You'll see it.
You can make the comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if you don't have a baseline, you can't make a comparison. You are guessing.
Yeah, exactly. So, and one ICP test, by the way, is not a baseline. No. But if you run it every 6 months, and now you've got some consistency, then if you run into trouble, now you've got a good baseline to look at. So, think about doing that. If you're really looking to run your reef tank long term, run an ICP test every 5 or 6 months, just so you know what's going on. And then when something does go wrong, you've got a much better situation to be able to evaluate whether that is something that's showing up on your ICP test.
Yeah, you've got like a roadmap to look back at to see if anything has changed.
And it should be super simple to fix with the block analysis system. I am a big fan of that. I could, if I had a way I could start it tomorrow, I would. Because when we've been working on this now for quite some time, really tweaking the concentrations of each element in the block systems and making sure everything can be converted from a reaction to a bad ICP test into a maintenance solution, because there's issues there, not issues, but things that needed to happen concentration-wise to make that happen. We've been working on this a long time and keeping it under wraps. And now that it's going to be available in Europe, I'm just like,
you must
itching to go. I wanted to get it here already because I think it's such a brilliant development. It's so hard to look at a current ICP test and know what to do.
Yeah.
And this block analysis system solves so many of the issues while at the same time making it simpler to look at.
If I had $1 for every time somebody had sent me their ICP test, like local reefers or friends of mine, and been like, what am I even looking at?
Yeah,
and then I have to be like, I'm gonna be honest. I can only identify half the things that are on this. And so just go to, is the line red or green? That's all I got for you. To know that that problem in and of itself is going to be solved by just making it easier to take action and not just feel overwhelmed by looking at these tests is a huge jump forward, because ICP has gotten a lot more popular. People want to be able to take these snapshots of their tank and pile them up and have a record and understand what's happening. And everybody wants to do the best they can for their pets. Like when it comes down to it, and actually we had a conversation about this earlier, we all are taking care of and are the guardians of our aquariums and our pets, and we're trying to do the best we can for them. That is like the main motivator for everything we're doing, whether it's dosing or what foods we feed and all that. And I was saying earlier that I think one of the reasons in the hobby, as a side note, that we get so defensive is because it's husbandry related. If somebody's gonna be like, well, that's not the best way for me, this is the best way. Sometimes I feel like people just think to themselves, well, you're telling me I'm not taking care of my animals properly. That's not it at all. There's so many different ways to do this. But to see the hobby trending towards wanting to do more and wanting to understand more, and it just getting so much more confusing, it is a breath of fresh air to be able to look at something and simplify it in a way that most people who don't have a PhD in chemistry are going to be able to pull apart, understand, and apply so that we are taking better care of the animals that we're stewards of.
You know, when Tropic Marin came out with All for Reef, it was a simplification that broadened out the population of aquarists that could have good success.
Yes.
And I see this block analysis system as a similar kind of thing.
A step in the right direction.
It's going to broaden the population of aquarists that can look at an ICP test and react to it in a positive way and make increases in what they're doing and changes that are helping their system. It's one of those very few things that's going to be simpler,
yes,
and yet more accurate and easier to deal with.
Yes, we've taken something that people can potentially learn to do, and have multiple elements to dose, made it something that's a lot easier to understand and to do, And this is the ICP version of that.
So you were so excited about hearing what is coming in the future. Did this meet your expectations?
Yeah. I had no idea what to expect.
And I actually didn't tell him before we taped this what I was doing.
No, matter of fact, I said, don't tell me, because I want to be surprised. Because this is, for me, this is really exciting. This is the part of the hobby that really keeps me going. It's the reason I enjoy making videos. It's seeing what's new and up and coming, seeing how it's going to positively affect the hobby as a whole, how it's positively going to affect me and my aquariums, because I can relate to it. And it is just... It is wild when you can't think of what the next big thing should be, and then somebody tells you, and then you're like, that makes a lot, in retrospect, that makes a lot of sense. But no, I am really excited to see that finally hit the US and the North American market.
Just know I will be bringing it over as quickly as we possibly can, but we do need to make sure that the logistics works properly.
That's Lou saying, don't flood his email inbox, all right? Just be patient, it's coming.
You can flood the comments, but don't flood my email.
Yeah, he's got things to do. He's got to send me products. I need Lou to help me out, so don't bog him down, okay? But yeah, it has been an absolute blast having you here. I've learned a lot more about a lot of things I already thought I knew a lot about. Every time I think I know a lot about something, I get somebody smarter than me sitting beside me who knows more, and they teach me more, and then I feel so, it amps me up, man. I really enjoy it. So Lou, thank you so much for coming. If you guys haven't seen, we've done a bunch of these videos. I think we're at 7 now. 7 or 8?
Yeah, I think this is 7.
7. We might even do another one. I don't know. I'm not ready to let him go. So anyways, you can check that playlist out and everything we've been talking about right here. Have a watch. It is fascinating. See you next time.
Been super fun.